Hi guys, it's Keisha Henry with New Beginning Healing Institute. Happy Monday to you. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the camera and my hair is pretty wild. And you know what? It's okay. I'm gonna make a mess. This is what one of the ladies said at the Women's Summit on Saturday. She was our main speaker. She says, "Just make a mess." Well, my hair is a mess today, so I'm following true to that. But welcome to today's one day inspirational. I have not done a video in over a month. It's about that. I think it's about that long, but you have seen my posts. I've been doing, my posts every now and then. So just want to give a big thank you to the New Beginning Healing Institute, community. You guys have been really, really just warm, So yeah, I owe you a newsletter. Newsletter is going to be coming out soon. And just a lot of updates. So where have I been? So two things. I want to talk about where I've been, one, and two, I want to talk about today's one day inspirational. You saw the quote this morning or the post that I made, and I'll mention that second. So let's first talk about where I've been. You probably hear my voice is hoarse. Yep. So I had a partial thyroidectomy. Hope I'm saying that correctly. I've been making sure I get the terminology down so I can talk about it. So yeah, I had a partial thyroidectomy March 21st. I'll never forget it because it was a week after my birthday. I just want to stress here that how important it is as women for us to have, proper, primary care, or our doctors or our caregivers in our lives. Because I have to tell you that, and I have to tell a big thank you to Mildred Bolko. Mildred, thank you, because you're the one that introduced me to Dr. Siegfried, Dr. Sylvia Siegfried. She's my OBG, and to me she's like my everything, honestly. And I remember going to her last year right about March, because that's like the yearly, the stuff that we don't like to do. And I remember she was doing my exam and she said, "You know what, I don't like what I feel up here, Keisha." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" She says, "There's something going on with your thyroid." And I said, and she started asking me certain questions, and I was like, "So do you have dry skin, or your scalp's dry?" And she's asking me all these other questions. And I'm like, come to think of it, yeah. And I feel very fatigued. But I thought nothing of, because I'm thinking I'm in my 40s. I'm just tired, She says, "No, I don't think so." And from there, she says, "You know what? Don't leave today. Don't leave yet. We're going to do some, panel on your thyroid, the TSH." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Because I'm thinking nothing of it, right? Well, not so. So the panels came back okay. And she said, "You know what? I'm not satisfied. I want to send you for some scans, for ultrasounds, for scans." I said, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm already busy. I don't have time. You know how we do, women, right? We're so busy taking care of everything else and everyone else. And we just feel like it's such an inconvenience for us to go to do this, right? And that's exactly how I felt. And I remember going to Palm Beach Gardens to, I forgot the name of the place where I went, and had the ultrasound done. And sure enough, I had this, it showed a mass on this side and this side. And from there, we went over, she sent me over to my endocrinologist, who I now have, and I love Dr. K. And he said, "You know what? I think we need to do a biopsy." I'm like, "Biopsy? Me? No, we're not doing that. That's not happening." Well, yeah, so we had, so I'm learning new terminology, an FNB, a fine needle biopsy. And so that stuff hurt, guys. They said, "Yeah, we're going to numb it." They did the numbing, but I sure still felt it. They should have put me out for that, honestly. But so with the biopsy, it came back that it was 50-50 chance of it being cancerous. And he was like, "We can't take that risk. We won't be doing that." And so I went through this. So the final results came back. I had the results back from like last October, November. And so from there, we started planning my surgery like within the near future. And so the holidays came, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to rush this. I'm going to really take my time to understand what is happening here. Yes, I was scared, okay? Nobody wants to hear the word cancer. Nobody. And so, yeah. So let me just pause here, because it was very emotional, very. So January came around, and we're in communication with the thyroid surgeon specialist, and he's number one in the country, by the way, Dr. Suh, S-U-H. I love him, out of Tampa, Florida. So I went to a specialized endocrinologist hospital. Didn't even know they have that kind of thing. But anyway, so yeah, so we have it all set up. What a process! Like a whole 2 or 3 months in advance. Oh my gosh, send your medical records and get this done and get the pharmacy. It was a to-do. I've never had this experience. But I have to be honest, they were very much on top of things. I'm very thankful. So Obstacles. Did have some obstacles. You know how insurance works. Oh my gosh. They are a to-do in this country. But anyway, so we had all of that worked out. And so I was able to get my surgery scheduled for March 21st, which it did take place. And, I have not been doing videos for that reason. So talking, and even now, like I touch my neck and my throat, I still have this soreness and just sore to the touch. I have not been lifting weights. Oh my gosh. Yeah. My son said, Mom, I know you're not happy. No, I'm not. But I can't. They said, like after 2 weeks, you can return to lightweight. Well, what's lightweight? I'm not doing anything. So I'm waiting to go back to my regular heavy stuff. Hopefully by the end of this month, I can kind of like get back into the groove of my weightlifting, my running, and my push-ups and all that. So that's where I've been. And again, I just want to thank you all for being kind. My church, oh my gosh, the calls, the visits, it's just been really, really great. I'm back in Boca today, and my dear friend Janet says, I miss you. So people have been missing me, and it feels good it feels good. It feels good that, that folks love and care about me, and so do you, and I really appreciate that. So that's my update about, where I've been and what I've been going through. And I have to tell you, when I was home, I spent 2 to 3 hours every day in my yard. So I was home for like 2-3 weeks. And one of those weeks I worked from home. Some of you already know that. But it was nice to be home, just to be in nature. It was really a nice way to reconnect to myself also. The work that I do, you have to spend that time to reconnect. So while I was going through this recovery period, it was just nice to reconnect with myself and nature. I had a lot more time to pray, to meditate, to read scriptures and read different books. It was good for that. I have to be honest. It's good to slow down. Sometimes it's amazing how the things that, that slows us down enough so we can really reconnect. And this was it for me. This surgery really kind of, took my everyday activities down to basically nothing. Like I just had to just stop. Right. And so, we could easily consider that to be an obstacle. Right. I'm trying to segue into today's, one day power tip. And so today's one day power tip talks about obstacles. You will have obstacles in this day, but you also have goodness. So in my story, I talked about the obstacles. I talked about the obstacles from the very beginning when I, found out about, what I was experiencing. And that was an obstacle because I did not want to be, who has time for that? So and then I had obstacles with insurance companies and all kinds of things that go into this realm of healthcare. And so obstacles will come. But then the next part of what I said today talked about, but goodness will come also, which will be your focus. And from that time until this time, there's a word that I want to introduce, and it's not a new word. It's an age-old word. It's called equanimity. And so equanimity, what is the simple basic definition of equanimity? It simply means a calmness of mind, having evenness in our mental attitude, and even our physical responses in the midst of obstacles, in the midst of difficulties, in the midst of hardship. And so equanimity is that. How do we do that? In the midst of difficulty, in the midst of disappointment, in the midst of hearing the word possible cancer. That's not cool, and so it's you're probably thinking it's easier said than done, but you know what? Equanimity is a skill, and it comes with practice. And the more you practice it over time, because let's just face it, we're never not going to have obstacles. But I want to talk about the goodness. What does goodness look like? When I was in this recovery period, one of the goodness, or plural goodnesses that I experienced while I was out was being able to be in my yard. You oftentimes perhaps see me post pictures of my yard or my chickens. Honestly, I do enjoy that, but I have to be honest, that goodness really came in handy for me when I was at home in my recovery. It really helped me with practicing this equanimity in the midst of my everyday activities that I could not do. I had to depend on others. Depend on my daughters, depend on my husband, depend on other persons to do things for me. Those are obstacles. And for during that time, I felt a little sad. I was like, I'm not able to do this, and I'm not able to do that. And even knitting, I didn't even pick up my knitting, guys, right? And so my obstacles, and obviously your obstacles will be different. Your difficulty, your challenge, you're perhaps facing cancer. You're perhaps facing a very serious diagnosis, a range of difficult emotions that come about when we hear these types of things. I know for me, it was difficult for me. I thought the worst. And so that's the next thing I want to address, is that sometimes, or most times, in the midst of difficulties, setbacks, challenges, our thinking style, because again, we're all so conditioned to think in negative terms. We're so conditioned to think the worst of everything, anything. And so our thinking styles can be ones that are negative. And I can mention a few, such as catastrophizing. I immediately thought the worst when I heard about, well, when I had the biopsy done. When they told me that stuff, I was like, wow, I immediately thought the worst. And then also another thinking style that's, like can be an error for most of us or all of us is, trying to foretell the future. We're foretelling that, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. And that's the thing, so, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to be on convalescent leave for a long time? What is that going to look like? Am I going to have to be on medication for the rest of my life? Because, when you do a thyroidectomy, so you have to pause and swallow. It's a little difficult. Most times, that persons have to take medication, a levodoxine. I can't remember the pronunciation of the medication, but, so what is my life going to look like after this surgery? And so our thinking styles, catastrophizing, foretelling, black or white, is either this or that. And there are a list of negative thinking styles. I don't want to take up much time talking more about that, but our thinking styles can really affect us, especially when we're in the midst of difficulty and challenges and obstacles. So the reverse of that then can help us thinking about, goodness. Having a positive mindset will actually help us to enhance equanimity. It helps us to have this evenness, this calmness in the midst of those things that I just mentioned and that you're perhaps, currently experiencing. And so, equanimity brings me to also another philosophical concept of Stoicism. We'll get into that today. But essentially, it's a way of releasing. It's a way of just surrendering. It's a way of acceptance. And acceptance and surrendering doesn't mean that you agree, that you agree. It's just that you admit, right, that this is so. And how can I embrace this? Because the truth is, the more we resist something, the more we push back against something that it's the less ability we have to think things through. It's the less ability we're able to execute things. And the more the emotions we allow ourselves to be swept away by our emotions, is the less ability we have to execute, to think things through, and to make proper decisions, right? And so remember, feelings are not facts. Feelings come and feelings go. So what we need to do is to be able to practice more, bring mindfulness. That's the next word I wanted to mention. So being mindful of our thinking style perhaps can help us to enhance or develop or cultivate the skill of equanimity, right? So taking a look at our thinking styles in the midst of what we're going through. And then if you can address or identify the thinking style, then we can work to do the opposite of that thinking style. Instead of catastrophizing about, tomorrow or the next day, or, saying this is that, or it's either black or white, or foretelling things, what we can do, we can take a step back. That's what mindfulness does. Hey, you know what? This is what's happening right now. I'm experiencing this. Let me take a step back, right? Pause. Put a pause. I always say in my work, put a purple ball in the middle of the floor. Put a ball between you and that thing that's happening. Do a pause. A pause can be like what I talked about earlier. Being in nature, taking a walk, talking to a friend, maybe, praying, just doing some breath work. Just taking a pause. That helps us to correct the thinking style. That helps us to embrace equanimity and to practice and to develop over time better ways of having an evenness, mental calmness in the midst of whatever it is that you're facing. So that is today's one day power inspirational. It's good to be back. I know it's a lengthy video today, but I promise to update on where I have been, where I am now, and also to make sure that we still stay connected. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to more one-day power tips. And by the way, I'll have another update coming out this week because I'm back, and we have episode number 14, so I have to pause again, coming up this Saturday. I'll be talking more about that. We have our teen group, girls group coming up over the summer, And of course, we're going to be launching again our Falls Women's Group coming up, and pretty soon for advertising about that. So good to talk to you. Hope you'll take in consideration the story about obstacles versus goodness, equanimity, thinking styles. See how you can apply that today. It's good talking to you. Bye, guys.